Hello everyone and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry, a fan channel where everything Dragalia Lost can be found. In today's video, I'm going to show off some never before seen summoning that happened on Gala Cerise's showcase. So I actually did my usual thing on this showcase of recording a summoning video and then deciding I wanted to summon a little bit more. So I ended up buying a couple of the anniversary packs and decided to see if I could get Cerise that way. And while this summoning takes place, I also want to discuss the recent addition of Expert High Dragon Trials, the new High Dragon Trial weapons, and some of my thoughts on the meta implications of that, my experience with it so far, and just my opinion on the overall direction of Dragalia Lost. So as you can see in this circle, even though there's no rainbow bow, I actually got Student Maribel. I thought that was going to be a Gala Cleo for sure. And then toward the end of the circle, there was a rainbow axe as well. And it actually happened to be Summer Julieta. So some of my summons were very absurd when it came to the Diamantium. And I'll go ahead and continue flipping through those so that you can see everything that I got. However, at the end of the day, this was a very bad decision. And I say that I got a couple anniversary packs, and that's how it started, but when it comes to buying Diamantium and summoning in the Gacha, if you don't have what you really wanted to get, it can often spiral into something very negative. So suffice to say, I spent more on this Gala than I had done in the entire first year of Dragalia Lost. I basically ended up buying every anniversary pack and some of the monthly packs, so I'll let you do the math on that yourself, but I spent about $1 a day ultimately in the first year of the game, and I'm pretty much well over that quota after doing all of this Gala Cerise summoning. So I don't plan to spend any money for the time being. I might be able to piece something together to do the dream summon. I'm really glad that came out, but I really wish I had been a little more patient and kind of disappointed in myself here of not being able to save, but that's the kind of pernicious thing that one has to always be cautious of and mindful of. Make sure you're in a good state of mind whenever you're starting your summoning. I was definitely not in this example, but you can see just like some of the absurdities I got when it came to dragons, the new adventures overall that I added to my collection, which was really awesome, but ultimately I wasn't able to get Gala Cerise. So despite ponying up a pretty penny for the game, I didn't really get my target. I really wish that sparking had indeed been added, but the thing that makes me the saddest is Gala Cerise is an adventurer who I just want to summon for my collection because I like her character, because I liked her in the Kindness and Captivity raid when she starred alongside Melsa. And that was such a simpler time in the game, I feel, where it didn't necessarily matter which adventures you had. There was an emphasis on having stronger dragons if you wanted to clear harder content, but in some ways it was kind of a Wild West where you could bring whoever you wanted to most content in the game, and the majority of content was accessible to players regardless of whether they were running something super meta or not. And flash forward to today, and I feel like it was such a foolish decision to summon so hard for Gala Cerise because the game has shifted so much toward rewarding specific team compositions and specific meta units and power creep units. I hate to say it, but I really feel like since the advent of Gala Cleo, or maybe a little bit before then, maybe when the skill damage dragons came out, or at the very least when they got buffed, we really have moved in a direction, and I think Mercurial Gauntlet is part of this as well, and augments are part of this, but where you really need to be at your maximum potential in a lot of cases to clear the hardest content in the game. And so what I want to say is the game has always kind of been like this, that if you want to be on the cutting edge, you do need to actually push and invest very heavily in your adventurers. But in this case, I just think too much may have been added at once with all these Expert High Dragon Trials, to where it's very demanding if you want to clear all of them to have a character built up with augments to survive possibly with a High Dragon Trial weapon that's come out, since those basically invalidate the 5 tier 3 weapons, even when they're max unbound. Basically, the demands are super high. There's a lot of new content that just dropped at once. And on top of that, there's a PvE component or PvP component in the form of PvE, where basically you are going to get ranked and only higher ranked players are going to get the best rewards. So the stratification between the worst rewards and the best isn't extremely high, but I really dislike that this has been implemented in the game. This is one of the things, PvP in general is something I said would be a red flag for me and make me less engaged with Dragalia Lost as a whole. And I do think that this meets my standard of that, since really the rewards are strictly based on how you compare to others. There's no incentive based on your own performance, it's all comparative. And what that does is funnel people toward certain strategies that are optimal. So I found that I was able to clear Expert High Mercury's trial so far. I ended up using a Noelle who fortunately is the one unit who doesn't need an extremely high level of investment in order to actually get clears with, but you're relying heavily on the other members of your team, like your Vayus, your Wedding Elisans, maybe a couple other units like Lin Yu, Addis, who can also be effective in this, to carry a lot and basically all of the DPS, and you're contributing solely through your buffs. So I think that they set the difficulty and the stats on these high enough that eventually it'll feel comfortable. You know, eventually we're all going to have some more of these High Dragon Trial weapons. We're going to have some more augments for all of our elements. There's other ways that we're going to be able to power up our characters, but really we're talking about a very small percentage of the player base here who's going to be willing to jump through all those hoops to get to that stage. There are a lot of people who didn't even have 5-star elemental weapons until the Fractured Futures raid, and they were able to redeem the Quantum Cog and get their very first one. So I feel like it's such a small slice of the player base to have this content for, and I just don't know. I was just pretty disappointed with it overall. I'm worried about the advent of the new weapons, especially. I feel like it's kind of a slap in the face for anybody who's ever bought Damascus ingots. It's not that those weren't useful at the time, so I guess I can see that argument, and any ingot purchase, you were getting some diamantium with it, but the fact that we use those to make these 5-star elemental weapons and unbind them, and now basically those are strictly worse than a new set of weapons that have come out, I just find it to be very disappointing, especially since there's no way to get them back. So overall, I have to say, this update has kind of put me off Dragalia Lost. I will say, you know, this bad spending decision is a little bit of a factor, but I'm still going to keep playing the game. I'm just not sure how much content I actually want to produce with the game in its current state. I'm going to send as much feedback as I possibly can. This obviously is coming off the heels of the anniversary, and there's a lot of things that I love about the game. There's a lot of points when I've been very happy with the game, but for me, this was just a little bit salt-inducing, honestly, just how this came out and what happened with it. And I understand that there are people who are very excited, so I would love to hear your counterpoints and hear your own experience. I think a very valid argument as well is, you know, having that content, like the ranking-based content, it doesn't maybe matter to you if you don't care about being on the edge or really pushing your adventurers and even trying to do that stuff, and it will eventually open up to other players, and at that point it can be exciting content for them in the future. So I'm definitely of two minds on this topic. I'm very split. I don't really know what to think, but my overall sensation is, I guess, a little bit of frustration and disappointment with how Time Attack was executed. I'm very apprehensive of Master High Dragon Trials, but I will likely be able to clear if I invest in a meta or popular unit, move some augments to it, craft that High Dragon Trial weapon that I'm going to need for it. But it kind of just feels like the rat race never ends at some level, you know, just when we're getting to a point where we're comfortable with our adventurers. And in some ways, that's kind of the loop. That's the grindy loop of Dragalia Lost, and it's similar probably to things like Grand Blue Fantasy, where yes, sometimes it is just about pushing up the numbers and that being what makes a fight much harder, but I feel like overall this was just a miss for me. As you can see, the summoning was kind of a miss as well, despite some random 5 stars. That's pretty much all I want to say for this video, though. I am very curious what y'all think about this. Like I said, I've basically only been able to clear High Mercury's trial on Expert. I was using Noelle. I also tried playing with Wedding Aoi and with Eleonora, but never saw those through to completion. So I'm not sure how wide the gap will be when everybody has High Dragon Trial weapons, how easy this will become. Maybe it will be something that in hindsight looks like just a blip, but I'm very nervous about what this portends for the future, so I just wanted to share that and just be honest. I'll probably be back around Halloween, maybe for that event. Hopefully I'm able to luck out with my free summon, since there's nothing left for me to buy with Diamantiem. There's no way to bail myself out. I'm not even sure if I'm going to do the Dream Summon. If you are planning on doing that, I guess one word of advice: the direction of the game lately does seem to reward investing in meta characters, so this might be your one chance to pick up someone like Natalie or Victor, maybe Shinobi or Vayu. So if you want to partake in that, maybe that's what you want to get. Otherwise, go for your favorite, go for somebody you really love. I wish I could say that advice unequivocally like I was able to in earlier parts of the game, but at this point it's hard to make that recommendation and sincerely tell you that that unit will be able to do whatever it is you desire. One other thing that strikes me is just what's going to happen when we have the 6th mana circle added, because if that's another gated thing that's very costly, like we need more Champions Testaments that we already don't have enough of, I don't know about that, because right now it feels like just trying to get all of these extra High Dragon weapons is a pretty big ask. Once again, I don't want this to be overly negative, but I want to be sincere with how I feel. I'm not, all-knowing. My opinion is not necessarily pervasive, but I do want to share that, and maybe some of what you write in the comments can help inform me of how other people feel. And I think that would be really great if we can start a conversation around this. How you feel about the High Dragon trials, the direction of the game. For me, there are some things I love. I loved how Fractured Futures brought in story elements. I actually liked the Omega raids. As hard as they were, I just thought the raid design was super cool. It wasn't purely about stat creep. With the Expert High Dragon trials and the new weapons, I gotta say, opposite feeling for me, where I just don't know if I needed this. It's kind of funny. I did want harder difficulties on things like Avenue to Fortune, the daily content that we do. I don't know if I needed this for the High Dragon trials in this fashion, but I guess it is something to do for the very enfranchised players for the next couple months until we get even harder trials, so good luck. Hopefully you have those weapons by that point. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video, everyone. For real this time. Thank you so much for watching. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Otherwise, though, take care, and I'll see you next time.